Well, hello. This is the December edition of the podcast, ANITA Says. Welcome. I'm Anita Ratnam, and this is ANITA Says, a monthly capture of the world of Indian dance and the events shaping its personality from around the world as I see it. At the end of a tumultuous year, when we are staring into several conflicts and possible further escalations, we are taking a moment to take stock of our lives and our journey in the dance arts. This is the final edition of ANITA Says for the year 2024. As we continue to wonder at the speed of passing time and the urgency and purpose of our lives, I would like to share my views and reactions to many performances I have watched in 4 cities over the 30 days of November. In New York City, Coimbatore and Chennai. Varied in content, purpose and intentions, these dance events have thrown up further questions about reinvention, repurposing and revival. I will discuss each of these performances and add my personal take. These are my opinions and mine alone, and I hope that it is received in the spirit of someone who has been engaged in the performing arts scene for 6 decades. I begin with a show called Rogue Gestures, Foreign Bodies, choreography by Nadi Tekek and performed by Nava Dance Theatre, San Francisco. A diasporic personal diary that expands into a community expression of fortitude, courage, and resilience is a popular topic for many dance and theatre creators. The 1965 Immigration Act brought a generation of trained and skilled professionals to the USA. Among them was a nurse from Kerala who forged a life for her family. She was the mother of dancer Nadi, who mined her mother's personal story into a multi-episodic dance presentation. The loneliness of being in a strange land, of a mother who worked and a father who stayed home to care for the family, is not the general diaspora experience. Nadi, as principal dancer and choreographer, attempted to make her personal story a universal one. She recalls her mother working several jobs in multiple careers while also becoming a community organizer and trying to put down roots in a foreign soil. As personal diary is a popular motif for many diaspora dancers, I remember watching Akash Odedra climb out of a suitcase in his solo in London years ago. And I find myself wondering if the Bharatanatyam vocabulary is sufficient to tell one's personal story. The form seems more readily suited somehow to channel the grander epic legend myths. Everyday life and experiences seem to demand a dismantling of the very formal structures, and yet Nadi and her dancers managed to override my initial skepticism with their continuous montage of multiple scenes and high-energy committed dancing. A truncated tillana where a dancer, quote, loses balance, also physically, which was one of the more effective physical translations of grief. A tillana, which comes after a phone call from India, conveys news of a beloved's passing. This moment brought tears to many eyes in the audience. I too remember receiving that dreaded phone call from India in 1998 about my father, a time before mobile technology. Do the familiar scenes of oiling and braiding hair, which is such an intimate mother-daughter, grandmother-granddaughter moment, do they invoke the same level of nostalgia today as it did perhaps 40 years ago, when distances and time seemed greater and communication slower? I wonder. The well-knit ensemble of dancers worked beautifully on several occasions, and the light-hearted invocation of the word game concentration was very clever, although it could have appeared earlier in the work. All the performers seem invested in the performance, and the technical and aesthetic appeal of the ensemble sections was high. The multi-genre music score was a standalone distraction. Now, I use this word deliberately since the many notes of instruments and styles were marvelously seductive, but they pulled attention away from the core of the narrative on many occasions. Directed by Rupa Mahadevan and Kalaisan Kalaichelvan, the superb sound design often overpowered the dancing rather than complementing the choreography. Rogue Gestures has been in the making with earlier iterations since 2022. It is a bold and brave work, worthy of watching more than once. It shows a coming of age and confidence with some North American dance makers who are willing to interrogate and investigate what it means to be brown and a person of color in a multiracial society. I applaud Nadi for braiding the many strands of personal history, poetry, movement, dance, and diaspora voices, and for asking the larger questions about labor, community organization, and about reclaiming one's identity all over again in further soil. Now it's my take. Personal diary is like an imprint. Your story is like none other. I yearned to hear some Malayalam phrases, a mother scolding her daughter, neighbors talking across a wall, a news report, something to locate the seed of the story emotionally and geographically. Or Nadi speaking live on stage, sharing a sliver of herself, her DNA. That would have made it so much more compelling. The personal as universal. You're listening to the podcast Anita Says, and I'm Anita Ratnam. I move on to the next performance I saw, also in New York City, called Moving Bodies, choreography and presentation by Maya Kulkarni, performed at the Martha Graham Studio Theatre. The reinvention of classical Bharatanatyam dancer Maya Kulkarni into her current avatar as mentor, choreographer and creator of the new vocabulary called Shilpa Natanam has been an interesting journey. Trained by hereditary gurus, Maya was a busy performer and a professor of political science for decades in the New York area. Over a phone conversation, she expressed her many areas of interest that did not fit into the Bharatanatyam mold, and how much she yearned to find a way to bring them into the framework of performance. Quilting architecture, history, global mythology, and poetry onto dancing bodies became her focus in a gradual shift of perspective over the past 10 years. It was during the pandemic that she fixed the name for her particular lens, Shilpa Natanam, a dance journey that is a series of moving sculptures and images drawn from multiple strands but pixelated onto a South Asian trained dancer. It was on Mesma Belsare on whom I first witnessed this movement pattern, although I could not quite place my finger on what had changed with Mesma's dancing. Her androgynous body and supple limbs seemed an ideal palette for Maya's erudite brush to begin painting on. In the evening titled Moving Images at the Martha Graham Studio, I watched Mesma interpret the Ardhanarishwara text with strength and abandon. Her final moment of hands outstretched and head flung back so effectively, conveying the splitting open of the cosmic core. Sonali Skandan was at her perky and light-hearted best, as expected. I have seen her earlier bee stories, where she was perfect as the flitting and restless bee. Here, in poet Vidyapati's multi-generational verses, Sonali shone in the brief moments as the mature woman, but they were too few and far between, the choreography remaining more on the joyous and impetuous young girl. The duet between Graham dancer Blakely White-Maguire and Kaustavi Sarkar revealed some interesting sculptural photographic moments but remained as a series of snapshots. I would have liked to see Blakely in a more independent role rather than reacting to Kaustavi's movements. She is an excellent interpreter of the Graham technique, which has an inbuilt sculptural epic structure that is the ideal complement to South Asian classical forms. The Indo-Tibetan goddess Tara was the subject for Bharatanatyam dancer Bharati Penneshwaran. Her strong presence and startling facial expressions, tongue out, head tilted, were well suited for the theme and the choreography. Deepa Mahadevan and Kaustavi Sarkar were featured in perhaps the least impactful piece of the evening. Now, not in terms of the content or the quality of the performances, but ineffective for the Shilpa Natanam concept that Maya Kulkarni attempted to draw out. It was a straight-hearted narrative of two pilgrims sharing light-hearted banter about legends of Lord Rama and Krishna en route to the temple town of Pandharpur. Effective physical comedy by both dancers brought a brief smile on many lips, but unspoken questions hovered. Maya Kulkarni stressed that Shilpa Natanam is a vocabulary and not a language, and that it is still evolving. She also stated that the dancers are not equal collaborators in the process. Rather, as I gathered from the conversation, they are malleable clay to have her lens shape the movement and the progression of ideas that she conveys to them. They are vehicles for her vision, not partners in the creation. So now to my take. Shilpa Natanam is not a clear style. There is neither a formal pedagogy nor a distinctive vocabulary for this title. What I saw were 5 pieces of dance, each dancer effectively illuminating the subject that was given to them. However, I noticed that each performer was typecast to their own strengths and physical structures, making for a predictive formula. A keener attention could be paid to costuming and hairstyling so as to not become a distraction to the dancing. Did I enjoy the evening? Well, yes, I did. Perhaps this is also a sign of a journey that is still in progress. What I do applaud is Maya Kulkarni's relentless curiosity, firm conviction, and enthusiasm to engage with dancers outside the Guru-Sishya paradigm and share her vision about the endless possibilities of Indian dance that can reinvent and adapt through time and geographies. You're listening to the podcast Anita Says, and I'm Anita Ratnam. I now move to Chennai, where I watched a lovely performance called Mandala. This is an interesting collaboration between Kuchipudi dancer Amrita Lahiri and musician Chandana Bala Kalyan. Titled Mandala, it credited Leela Sampson with choreography and direction. A bare stage at Bharati Vidya Bhavan, Mylapore, was pierced with the haunting voice of Chandana in a flame red-pink sari, singing strands of a Meera bhajan. From her first few notes, she had the audience in a spell, and the enchantment continued throughout the evening. Chandana is a superb musician. Her diction in Kannada, Telugu, Sanskrit, and Marathi was flawless. Her musicality and ease with her dancing partner was clearly apparent throughout the performance. Now, to the dancing. Amrita Lahiri is a very elegant and expressive Kuchipudi dancer, and this collaboration is a big step for a style which has been notoriously reticent to explore and expand its classical horizons. Facial expression, Mukha Abhinaya, has long deserted Kuchipudi for the more energetic and rhythmic aspects of the style. So, for Amrita to speak about outer consciousness making a journey to the inner core made me curious. Through various saint composers like Kanakadasa, Annamacharya, Kshetraya, Dharmapuri Subbarayar, Kabir, and Varkari poetess Sorabai, both performers attempted to draw us from exuberance towards meditative calm. There were some beautiful moments, yes, but they were not sustained. The rhythmic Jugalbandi was too simplistic for the Chennai audience, and Amrita's delicate waif-like presence was no match for Chandana's powerful vocals that carried emotion and weight like a streak of lightning. Mandala was certainly an interesting and hopeful example of how a solo dancer could partner with a talented and open-minded musician to create an intimate evening of exploration into sacred poetry. The transitions between the dancing and the informal chatting with the musician could have been smoother. Amrita's technique displays a delicate strength, but perhaps a deeper engagement with Abhinaya and stillness could help the emotional weight of the narrative to land with audiences. This may be a challenge in today's environment where breakneck speed is associated with a Kuchipudi dancer. So now for my takeaway. Balancing the musician and dancer is crucial. Shorn of all instrumentation, it is even more vital for both artists to expand themselves towards one another and not be straightforward emoting or merely responding to lyrics. While total equality may not be achieved, the work needs to be calibrated to showcase both performers' individual strengths along with a collective charge. Now I travel to Coimbatore for a 2-day event for Lavanya Shankar's Academy Abhyasa. 20 years is a generation. It marks an important milestone for any artist or organization. Bharatanatyam dancer Lavanya Shankar's Academy Abhyasa celebrated the landmark with a 2-day celebration. As a senior student of Guru Varuvur K.J. Sarasa, Lavanya is a beautifully trained dancer with impeccable technique. To see her guru's style clearly etched on her lithe body was a delight. Lavanya opened the celebrations with her new solo, Jahnavi, the sacred river Ganga. To hold the stage in a thematic solo today for 90 minutes is challenging by itself. To override the distracting and overdone lighting was a feat. To remain in control of a powerful orchestra, Malavika Vaidya's vocals and multi-percussionist K. Parthasarathi, who deserves special mention, took presence and poise. All this Lavanya demonstrated with ease. I particularly loved the Bhairava Ashtakam, inspired by the presence of Lord Shiva in a fierce form in Kashi, Banaras. The abandon of the head thrown back, the tremors of a trance, were all tapped into with surprising effect. I have never seen Lavanya in this avatar, and I hope she explores the dramatic side of her dance persona more. My take. Lavanya did not need the props and the stage additions that were used. Her solo was enough to hold the narrative together. A bit overlong, Jahnavi can benefit with some judicious editing, but the premise of the production is rock solid, and Lavanya's maturity as a dance artist was clearly revealed. The second day, however, was the highlight. Selected to receive the Abhyasa Nritya Vardhini Award were the popular trio Parshvanath, Shruti and Aditya. After the award function, what followed was 2 hours of unadulterated joy. Titled Kathamritam, Guru Lavanya wielded the Nattuvangam and watched with pride as her 200 students charmingly illuminated various short stories of nature, animals, and sections from the Mahabharata. I particularly appreciated that the disrobing of Draupadi was not enacted. Special mention should be made of the scene with the crawling red ants, the sprightly white pigeon, the powerful lion wearing a Julie Taymor-designed headgear from Broadway's The Lion King. Oh, this was brilliantly done. Even the youngest set of dancers were given roles which they executed with discipline. Neatly designed costumes, flawless entries and exits, pithy explanations like glove on, ready to catch a friend in need. Excellently trained dancers with good Aramandi and Angashuddham. This was a joy to see such attention paid to every aspect of the presentation. My take. Kudos to Guru Lavanya for 20 years of dedicated effort. I now know why she has not become as well known as a soloist as she deserves to be. Having focused on building her academy and becoming a cultural icon in Coimbatore over 20 years. Teaching is not easy, especially as times change and today's young have such different dreams. Those who do and perform deserve special mention. Now you may be asking, did I enjoy all the 4 performances I have just spoken about? The answer is yes. Each presentation was bold, brave, and challenged the viewers. For that, I applaud the dance artists and their collaborators. Traditional vocabularies were interrogated, reimagined, and repurposed to suit various ideas. All 4 performances had very good technique, and I'm noticing a huge improvement in the dancing standards in North America. To have an independent choreographer like Maya Kulkarni shaping an evening with 7 artists is not common in Indian dance. I would urge principal dancers who also serve as choreographers to employ a third eye for their work. It definitely helps getting another perspective. You're listening to Anita Says, the podcast which is a monthly capture of the global world of Indian dance, and I'm Anita Ratnam. Is legacy media dying? That is the question being asked vociferously soon after the US presidential elections. The soaring popularity of social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and the long-form podcasts like Joe Rogan have seemed to attract both followers, viewers, and listeners. Enough, it seems, according to media pundits, to sway the election outcome to favor the resounding win of the president-elect Donald Trump. For a decade, it has been coming. Lifestyles, travel across geographies, and changing tastes among the young have led to digital news magazines and more immediate turnaround for the news cycle. The on-air television anchors have slowly tilted towards their personal political alignments and are no more objective news platforms for both sides of the news. So now, what does this actually mean for the arts? Food, fashion, cinema, travel, and retail are flourishing with new and younger writers bringing their sharp focus and writing talents to their blogs. Dance, music, and theatre are languishing with a lopsided ratio of too many performers and too few writers and interlocutors for these art forms. Dance moved to the digital media years ago, and for Indian dance, the lacunae of sharp reporting and insightful writing has diminished significantly. If we are talking about entrenched media outlets, we have The Hindu, which is nearly 150 years old, whose Friday review pages still maintain space for the performing arts. Shruti magazine, 41 years old, with a macro view of South Indian art forms. This portal, Nartaki, turns 25 in its web version and is considered by many as part of legacy media in the light of platforms like Meta and Google. While instant reviews and a slew of emojis accompany many dancers' posts, when it comes for reaching for quotes to use for touring, PR kits, visa applications, and serious consideration by presenters, traditional media always scores. Reviews that appear on this portal have been used by numerous dancers on their websites and for their visa applications. However, let me not get ahead of myself. What I say or write has little effect on the actual careers of dance artists. They may take a quote here and there and share it on their personal blogs and social media platforms, but no legacy media can claim to make or break the career of an artist. There was once a time when a negative review in the New York Times meant the end of a career, no longer. As the maverick Tesla founder Elon Musk states, "You are the media now." It is the public's opinion, word of mouth, interesting and brief writing on alternate platforms that create an accumulative groundswell of opinion that can help the career of a creative person. When the first Nartaki directory came out in 1992, everybody said that it democratized information and contact sharing. But today, the concept of a phone book is outdated. Contacts, performances, workshops, tours, merchandise, and brands are being created outside the traditional channels. And it is as it should be. In the meantime, I continue to write, talk, watch, and share my thoughts for whoever wants to read, listen, and for however long I remain engaged and curious about the arts. Rafa forever. My love for the game of tennis and for the Spanish icon Rafael Nadal is so well known. When he retired from professional tennis last month, the world of sport erupted in a cross-genre salute and applause for his contribution. Legends from football, soccer, golf, swimming, athletics shared their personal admiration of Rafa's genius, and his multiple achievements were marked. Now, there is no official retirement for Indian performing artists. There is no farewell concert, no final hurrah, no formal goodbye that is marked. We just morph into seniors, legends, mentors, elders, or simply has-been washed-up aunties, didis, mommies. And when dancers retire, there is no cross-genre recognition unless we have spent our creative lives consciously cultivating other interests and making the links with other individuals and ideas that cross-illuminate our art and our lives. If we remain narcissistic, then there is nobody else to blame but ourselves when we fade away and are eventually forgotten. A young intern with a cultural magazine asked her boss, "Ma'am, can I get a soundbite from Rukmini Devi?" Now, I'm not making this up because I cannot make this up. This is the state of our knowledge of dance history. It is truly appalling that there is no conscious effort to introduce this aspect in the thousands of dance classes across India and the world. A history lesson on Indian dance. Complex, messy, layered, fascinating, covering all aspects of dance rather than just the cacophonic din of identity, politics, and victimhood that has unfortunately also become the focus of well-funded academic circles. And so in December, Chennai once again becomes the navel of the Carnatic music and classical dance world, or so it seems to think. The December season roster reveals that more than 75% of the artists programmed are from outside Chennai and outside India. What do the talented local dancers do? Wait for an opportunity or plan to travel to the Bay Area, California, and other foreign shores to replenish their coffers? There is a growing grumble from the Chennai dance scene, and perhaps Abhay can respond as a formal cultural body to this statistic. Chennai needs to look around and see the vibrancy of the cultural calendar in neighbouring Bengaluru. The Bengaluru Habba, which starts on December 1st for 2 weeks, contains 400 assorted performances and cultural installations in 40 venues. And then there is the magnificent Serendipity Festival in Goa, which is India's best cultural event. And the brand expands to Birmingham, UK next summer as the first international edition of Serendipity via Piali Ray of Sampad Arts. Read all about the various Chennai Sabhas and their program calendars on the nartaki.com site and in the monthly newsletter. To all visiting artists and creators, welcome to my hometown, Chennai, where a city meets the ocean and hosts the world's continuously largest privately funded performing arts festival. To all the awardees, a huge shout-out of congratulations, especially to the younger generation who are truly deserving of the honours coming their way. Buy tickets, buy saris, shop endlessly, get your costumes and accessories done, your new music scores recorded, gossip endlessly, show off your new clothes, buy tickets for all the shows. A huge thank you for this. Your generosity helps the Tamil Nadu GDP jump for this month. The annual Kaisiki Natakam returns on December 11th in my ancestral temple town for the 26th consecutive performance at Tirukkurungudi, a Tirunelveli district in southern Tamil Nadu. Over 2,000 devotees throng to watch the engaging story of Nambaduvan, the devotee musician, and the arrogant demon Rakshasa. Happy holidays! It is Margari, and my beloved Andal returns in all her glory. It's also time to have some fun. I walked the ramp with Carnatic icon Aruna Sairam in an entertainment fashion show, an evening alongside other dancers and musicians. Why not? We take ourselves too seriously sometimes. If the iconic Mathagram Dance Company can be part of the very public and popular Macy's Thanksgiving Parade in New York City, it's time for us performers to also let our hair down. Just a bit. And now, about this podcast. The success of long-form podcasts that engage in one or two specific subjects and take their time to allow both the listeners and their guests to open up about their work, life, and thoughts has become extremely popular and powerful. This podcast began 15 months ago and has been largely a replica of what I write each month on the Nartaki web portal. The response has been fairly positive, but I feel that there are topics and issues that require a deeper engagement. While I'm aware of this, it also needs a rejig and a reorientation with guests and people willing to have conversations about some contentious and difficult topics. We, the dance and music community, are famous for sitting on the fence and not taking any sides or having any opinion. Dance is not center stage anymore in society, and a long-form dance podcast may face its own challenges. As we enter 2025, I'm taking a look at how I can make this monthly edition more interesting and engaging, even for myself. But it needs your participation. It's not enough for some of you to send me private WhatsApp messages about how much you enjoy the podcast. You hesitate to write those same comments on the Spotify channel. Why? I urge you to consider sharing your comments and opinions publicly. I hope you continue to listen and share this edition and others, and tell friends, and remember that unless you let us know what you like and what topics you want covered, we cannot grow and respond. Remember that I am from a generation where only 2% are engaged on social media. The 2% who are 65 years and over. That means I rely and depend on listeners who are a generation or more younger than me to teach me. I'm listening. Thank you for your time and enjoy your holidays. Live, laugh, sing, and dance. Because now there's public permission for everyone, even with 2 left feet, to dance after watching a 79-year-old president-elect pump his fists in various directions. You know what I'm talking about, right? Stay healthy and joyous. Be grateful for all that we have and hold our loved ones close. Thank you for another year of reading, listening, and following our platforms. Until we meet again in 2025. This is Anita Ratnam signing off. And this is the Anita Says podcast for 2024.